Hi, I'm Rachel Dillon, and together with my husband Marcus Dillon, we lead Who's Really the Boss podcast, where we highlight the joys and challenges of running a business with your spouse or family. Our mission is to strengthen families and businesses by helping listeners avoid the mistakes we have made so they can lead and live happily ever after. Welcome back to another episode of Who's Really the Boss podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, this, episode we'll be talking about our recent trip to Florida. That was for a work purpose in that we hosted our mid-year team retreat. And so we have to record the episode because we would talk about it anyway. So it just makes sense to just include it as its own episode rather than trying to, give a brief little update and then move on to a different topic.
Yeah, so this was a travel retreat. We, as a virtual firm, really believe in seeing our people still and however we can see that our people. So we bring them together at least twice a year. The last time we did a travel trip like this was 3 years ago when DBA turned 10 years old, kind of a celebration just to share with the team and their spouses. So 3 years later, we wanted to do a similar travel trip just because we felt like some new people had come on, some additional spouses, obviously, with those new people, and just get them together in a more ideal setting, a more destination than Katy, Texas, where it typically is. So it was good. I think people question like the role of retreats. Maybe even if you are together every day and not virtual, we still have always believed in retreats, setting vision, mission, values, discussing firm goals. Retreats have also been a way for us to be transparent with the team on the goals we're setting and where we're at in those goals. So we covered some of that as well, but it's always good to have people together. So we wanted to do something a little bit different than we've done here in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. So we took that trip in 2021 to Mexico where we took the team and their spouses. And we are now recording in mid 2024. And our team members who went on that trip are still talking about that trip. So it made it an easy yes to think about if we are flying people, paying for hotels, people are having to rearrange schedules anyway for us to do any type of in person get together. Why bring them to Houston in the middle of the summer when we could go to the beach in the middle of the summer? And so that was something that we decided on pretty early on. We asked people if they preferred beach or mountains, and we landed on beach was the majority of what people wanted. Even though a lot of us actually live in the hot, people still wanted to go to the sand, sun, sea. That was kind of preference.
Yeah. So we polled the audience, right? So if you're thinking about doing this before you spend $1 and choose the wrong destination, know what your people like, know what they would see as a good change compared to where you maybe have a retreat, because there will be cost associated with it. So our whole team, every single one of them had to travel, both fly, drive to the airport, and then Uber to the hotel from the airport that they flew into. So travel was a consideration on this retreat for everybody. That's an additional expense. We could have easily had it near where either we live or where other team members live to cut down on some of that travel. But we chose for a variety of reasons. So why don't we talk a little bit about what that travel looked like? And if you're thinking about doing a trip like this, which we will also talk about the benefits of this trip even more, what are some of those considerations on just travel?
Yeah. Considerations for sure are how far are people having to travel to get to the airport? What flights actually leave or have nonstop routes to the destination that you're trying to get to? And then once they arrive at that airport destination, how far then is it to go to the resort, the hotel, conference center, whatever it is that you're going to? We didn't necessarily want people to have a full day of travel, and definitely not more than one day of travel. We didn't want really, we didn't have the ability on this time, we could have, to do group transportation from the airport to the hotel, because we left that up to individuals. Since they were bringing spouses, since they know what airports are closest to them and timing as far as for their family and how they were dropping off and coordinating pets and kids, we let people pick kind of, we gave them the airports that were nearest by. We chose a place that had multiple options for close airports with multiple different airlines. Just that way gave everyone options that they didn't have to travel significantly in addition to their flights that they were taking. Now, best laid plans, right? You try that, and then the reality is you cannot control what layovers look like, what delays look like, or if there were a canceled flight or something like that, or even traffic once you get there. Maybe it's only a 10 miles from the airport, but there's major accident or heavy traffic, and now you're still having an hour plus travel from the airport. So those are some things we let our individual team members book the flights that worked best for themselves and their spouse.
Yeah. So with having team members from California to Texas to Michigan to Alabama, Colorado, we just could not control that as much as we did 3 years ago when most were still in the Houston area. It was just a lot easier to say, hey, show up at this airport and we're all going to fly on the same plane. That also has some concerns if the plane goes down, right? But it's not our problem anymore if we're on that plane. So those were some considerations that we gave up a little bit of control in the travel, and seeing now, how that worked out, I kind of want to get some of that control back on the next one. If you are thinking through travel, I mean, obviously there's always, you know, road travel, road trips, I guess, if you will, versus flight. So just factor that into if you're going to have a destination retreat of some type. Obviously, if you've planned it out the right way and you know how to do it, it could be tax deductible, all that fun stuff if you're a business owner. But travel is a big expense. The other thing, as we were looking through and kind of polling the audience, one is, as you mentioned, we went to Mexico in the past, and you have to ask, does everybody have a passport? Because you want the whole team there if possible. And so we did have a few people that did not have passports. So we just made the decision to kind of keep it domestic. And with domestic, we also first sought out all inclusive resorts just because we wanted meals, kind of any drinks that would have been enjoyed. All inclusive on something like this is always more ideal. We sought out just US based all inclusive resorts. There aren't many compared to international all inclusive resorts. And so, something to keep in mind there. And then we actually landed on Florida because there was an all inclusive resort in Destin. And that's how we actually got introduced to the Henderson Beach Resort, I guess, is where we stayed. There's also a Henderson Beach Inn, which is all inclusive, but it's smaller and could not handle the size of our team with 15, around 15 rooms. So, but those are some of the considerations. So we ultimately were not able to do all inclusive this time around. We will push for all inclusive the second time here on out, just because it is so much easier than coordinating kind of meals and drinks and all that stuff.
Yeah, our team members are already working on passports and making sure that no passports are expired for as early as next year at this time. So, looking forward to the next one. Give some highlights, Marcus, of your favorite parts of the retreat, and then we'll talk through specifically the retreat where we actually did the team meeting, what we covered, how it went, why it was so important. Uh, Overall, the trip was a huge success. So, what were some of the highlights of the fun things or the free time that was mixed in with that trip?
The number one thing is just seeing people in person, and part of that is extending, the DBA team to their spouses. So seeing spouses, catching up with them, just getting to know personalities even better than you knew before, and maybe meeting spouses for the first time. So there's a lot of that this time around, which I mean, that's the primary objective. The second thing I would say is like having conversations that may be awkward over video, like having those in person, like rolling out new bonus, structure, rolling out different goals, or where we're tracking on those goals and being able to answer questions in person was by far way better than it would have been virtually. And then all the fun in between, the hours spent in the pool or at the beach, the boat ride, that was kind of a little excursion that we did as a team. Those are the things that, four things that really stand out for me as whenever I look back on this. And then the fifth would probably be the wrap up dinner. Just sending off everybody, kind of speaking to the team, speaking into individual team members in front of their spouses. So they could hear how much they mean to me, to you, to the whole, organization. I think that goes a long way. So those are five things that I was able to come up with on the fly.
Yeah, no, those are excellent. My favorite part of the whole entire 4 days, and I think the one overarching thing that makes it just such a huge success, when we released the team after our meeting for free time, we hadn't really scheduled anything. We gave people the itinerary and the agenda ahead of time. We gave recommendations as a team. We kind of put together some recommendations of nearby attractions and restaurants, grocery stores, that kind of thing, and just told people you have, a lot of free time with your spouse. A lot of us have kids or, working spouses. So schedules don't always line up. So we wanted to give that time back to the team, a trip for them to spend that time however they wanted. And we came out after eating, after our team meeting, and our whole entire team was out at the beach sitting in the sand together. So unplanned, just gravitated towards each other multiple times at the pool, same thing. And it wasn't like there was only one pool and there was nothing else to do. Like, of course, you meet up with each other. There were three different pools and a beach, plus a ton of other attractions around us in Destin, Florida. So the fact that we all ended up together in a place really made that special. It really just reminded me that we met some of our team members for the very first time in person at this retreat. We met multiple spouses in person for the very first time at this retreat. And yet it's like have been friends for a long time. The team, as a whole, individually have been friends for a long time, genuinely care about and like each other, want to spend time together.
Yeah. And we some of the people that have come to DB over the years were friends first. So like that's, we use that word friends. I know some people are like your work should not be considered family or friends, but like the relationship started off that way first. So I think it's just easier to continue. Ultimately, it all comes back to culture, and we hire and retain people based on like culture fit. Probably more so than like technical capabilities. So those are the things like when we look at who we're hiring, one of the questions that the team thinks about in those interviews is, could you sit on a beach with this person? Could you go have drinks at the bar with this person, or would you not want to hang out? And it just kind of goes back to um, small team. Like that's who we are. And those questions definitely come up.
I think that's like the final deciding factor,
Correct.
after we've kind of vetted skills and experience and value that they could bring to the clients and the team. Definitely, the final question is, could you spend? Would you want to spend a few days off or on vacation with this person. So if we can answer yes to that, it's a yes. It's a yes to the hire for sure.
Yeah. So, you were correct. Like everybody but one couple ended up on the beach, and the couple that was not there was doing parasailing. Right? Is that the right
Yes,
term?
it's
Yeah.
maybe that's what brought us to the beach, and it wasn't so coincidental that we were all
Yeah.
there. We were all waiting for, Holly and Chris to come literally flying by in the air, from where we were set out on the beach. So, yeah, that's fun.
But and that all that to say, like, we wanted to include spouses. We want buy-in from the spouses. We want to make sure that if a team member has a bad day, that the spouse is kind of in our like an advocate of us to make sure that hey, they're listening, and if there are any words of wisdom they can give because they want to go on the next trip, right? So I think those are some of the comments that we got from spouses after that were told directly to our team members, right? Is you can never leave DBA because then it's like me breaking up with DBA. So those are some of the comments. The other cool thing before we get into actually what like we covered as a business on the retreat, um, it was so like good to see that two of like a team member and spouse, like they never traveled before, so it was a new marriage. They've never traveled together before, so this was like their first trip. And another team member, they haven't traveled together in like 13 or 14 years as a couple because they got pregnant and had kids and just didn't have time for that or made time for that. And then two others are in the final stages of a pregnancy, and this is kind of used as a getaway for them prior to babies coming, and a good reset as a couple. So that was awesome to be a part of that, to provide space for that. And I think everybody enjoyed that. One spouse couldn't come because of just responsibilities with children and everything at home. So that, you kind of have to work through that. But all the team members came. And then one spouse left early to go to a soccer game, a pretty big soccer game in Dallas. So they made the effort to be there the majority of the time. But you kind of work through some of those things. You definitely want everyone on the team there, because if not, we had that happen before where one of the team members wasn't there on the Mexico trip, and they were definitely missed. I think that's the thing, and they're still on the team. But even that, it's like they missed out on some of those stories that we still tell to this day.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of go day by day, but let's definitely camp out on the team meeting part of the retreat. I think it's important to talk through what we did the first night or upon arrival, because that really set the tone for the time that we spent together as just a team the next morning. So when we arrived the first night, again, people were checking in at different times, arriving at different times, and just had a little bit of time to get situated and get settled. Then we scheduled a happy hour meet and greet just later in the evening, a time we did 8 p.m. that just gave everyone the chance to arrive and get settled and then come together for spouses to meet, for us to, give hugs and handshakes in person to those people who we hadn't had that opportunity to do that with yet.
Yeah, just get eyes on people. Some people traveled from California to Florida with a layover. I think Alina was the last to arrive. She had the longest, flights as well. So some people showed up early that day. Some people showed up the day before. They just it was all over the board. So you want to create a time whenever you can get eyes on people, and just make sure that they made it all right. Especially if the next day is more of a, hey, our time together is dedicated to like business or deeper conversation. So yeah, it was a great kickoff, I guess, if you will. We did it late enough to where we were able to see a great sunset at a rooftop bar at the hotel. Made it real easy for people. Whenever you do these type of destination events, you want to center it as much around the hotel or the immediate area if you possibly can, just because you don't want people like renting cars and Ubering multiple places if you don't have to. So that's just something to keep in mind whenever you do host these events. And when we do this in town, so to speak, as well, we always kind of have a night happy hour or dinner for those team members that are traveling in, just to make sure that they know, hey, we're going to start bright and early the next day. Get here, have the day before be your travel day, and you're not trying to wake up at 4 a.m. to get to town to be, present for a 9 a.m. meeting. So this is something that we do, whether it's local, I guess, retreat or destination retreat.
Yeah, and our team was on best behavior. They knew, again, they already knew the schedule for the next day, that there was going to be plenty of time to kind of unwind and relax and let loose. But maybe the first night wasn't the best night to like go crazy. So they were, everybody was on their very best behavior.
Yeah.
And we started the next morning early and dedicated that very first morning, which happened to be a Saturday for us. No one complained, no one had any issues with it. But we started Saturday morning off with breakfast and then our team meeting. Here was something that we learned more recently is that renting hotel conference rooms are typically expensive. They typically not necessarily the room charge. Typically, they'll actually waive the room charge and give you such a great deal. What they're charging you is a food and beverage minimum, clearly, because that's where they're able to make the money. And so, on that, we learned that if possible, if it works for your team, it's more cost effective actually to rent a suite if it's large enough for your team and conducive to, as far as having like a TV screen of some sort to be able to display any visual information that you need, than it is to have a conference room. The other piece of that is it's much more like relaxed and intimate of a setting than, kind of a corporate or conference like ballroom type of a setting.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and obviously, our room is the larger room, so we're the benefit of that throughout the rest of the stay as well. But it's amazing how far the dollar goes in just a larger room versus that conference room with food and beverage minimums. If another option is if there's a restaurant close, you could look at options there if you know the area really well, and see if they have a back room that you could kind of be in for a bit, but in this case, like when we were going over things about goals and different pay structures and things like that, having a nice, comfortable couch, a lot of comfortable chairs, a TV screen that we could actually screencast to was very helpful. But just everybody able to, kind of not let their guards down, but be comfortable enough to speak their piece versus just being so business y, I guess, with the feel of a conference room.
Yeah. And another way really to elevate team members, and I thought about this after, though it may feel awkward being taking over someone else's room. But if there is a team member that you wanted to kind of elevate or celebrate, you could always give that team member that room, that special
Mhm.
room, if you wanted. So if you wanted to highlight a birthday or anniversary or some kind of goal that they achieved, you could do that as well. So they just have to be willing to let the whole team into their room, and it's presentable for whenever that meeting time happens.
Well, that would be like, so you're saying that we wouldn't get that would be kinda awkward if we, like, roomed with somebody, so that would, be a switch,
Let them have the good
yeah,
room,
yeah,
and we would take a regular room
yeah,
in that
there
case.
is yeah, that's a good thought. The other piece that you look at is we actually prefer hotels in these situations. We've talked to plenty of people, that are like, "You should just rent a couple of big Airbnbs or 3 Airbnbs, VRBOs, whatever, and just kinda, do it that way," which that's great, that's a feel. You wanna talk through, like, why we've never considered that, and why we've stayed in hotels?
I think we have talked through this on a previous episode, but I still feel like I'm working when I stay in an Airbnb. I feel like if I'm cooking, which it to me, it's neither here nor there. Like I can take it or leave it. I don't have like a passion for cooking, but it's not awful. I don't hate it. And so I could do it. But I don't feel like I'm on vacation. It feels like another day. If I'm doing laundry or sweeping floors or cooking, that feels like home. So that doesn't really feel like much of a vacation. So at the hotel, when I can leave my room and they come in and they make the bed and clean up the towels and, kind of replace those things that you've used, or, I can walk down to any one of the restaurants and have service and walk away and somebody else cleans up the mess after me. I'm choosing that for, a time to relax.
Yeah. And then it just gives everybody else their own space because in the Airbnb or VRBO, our team, it would have to be a very, very large house, pretty much a mini hotel. Um, and so you don't want to like break up the team into two groups. Like that would be awkward. Like I'm going to your house, I'm staying at my house. But then it also like if you didn't want to hang out with the team, like you pretty much have to be gone all day. So like that's something to keep in mind whenever you are considering Airbnb, VRBO, or hotel slash resort.
Yeah. So let's talk about the kind of the structure of that team meeting and what we typically, this is what we always start with now for any retreat, is starting with looking back at the goals or the progress towards the goals that we've set for that year or that half year. So if it's a mid-year retreat like the one that we just had, we go back to December when we set the objectives and goals for the entire year and we start marking off or reflecting on the progress that we've made and then celebrating those achievements, for the ones that have been completed or have made great headway.
Yeah, and it's a slide, so we just start with that slide. It's the slide from the previous retreat, so we just copy and paste whenever you are building out a slide deck, and then obviously you add in animations like check mark, that one's done. Let's move on to the next ones that we still have yet to kind of go through. So I think we've always done a good job, whether it's mid-year retreat, kind of giving progress on the goals or the things that we've set out to achieve, and then year-end retreat, obviously it's did we complete these or not? Like, this is what we said we would do for the year. Maybe we made a decision like that this wasn't a priority for this year. And we still talk into that. But it is how do you tie it all together from the mid-year retreat to the annual retreat? And then, even forward, here is the plan that we're going to continue to pursue.
So some of those celebrations and goals, that we had made progress on or completed, hiring new team members, onboarding new clients. We had some career or professional development objectives that we'll talk about. We had whole sections of the team meeting dedicated to that, and some process improvement goals, as well as some objectives that we've been talking about and making great progress towards as far as helping the accounting industry and our kind of peer community and network.
Yeah. So there was a few different things rolled out. I would say we were at the beach. Like we were in Destin, Florida. We weren't going over anything too heavy or technical. It was also a Saturday morning. We wanted to keep that comfortable vibe going. So we talked about I don't want to say easy stuff because there wasn't easy stuff like part of it, but it wasn't like technical like tax update or anything like that. It's just not who we are, not who we designed that event to be. So know your setting if you're going to do that. Obviously, if you're doing like education along the way, is this the best use of that time? Whenever you've got all of your team in person, you probably don't want to do things that are just as easy like virtually. So we had the comfortable conversations, celebrate the wins because we want to celebrate wins in person, right? Give people high fives. And then we also want to talk through any changes, especially changes that are going to have like follow up questions. So beyond the like touching on the goals, kind of the revenue where we were and the different metrics that we got, we had some big wins that 2 weeks leading up to that retreat. We actually signed a really big legacy existing client to a CAS engagement, and got us really close to almost our annual goal, as far as like 13 CAS engagements coming in one fell swoop. That was a huge win to celebrate with the team, talk through even what onboarding is going to look like for that. So there was just a lot of good things shared. And then we led into a change from our current bonus structure that we've had. How long had we had that bonus structure in place? Probably 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, since 2018, I think was the first
Yeah.
time that a incentive tied to growing our CAS business was introduced.
Yeah.
So that was how our previous bonus structure was tied to incentivizing the whole team for new CAS clients because we were transforming the firm from a tax heavy kind of compliance deadline driven firm to the relational monthly recurring revenue, highly relational client service model. So definitely a transformation was taking place, and we wanted everyone to celebrate in that, because what that looks like for, in case you're wondering, for a team member to get a new client, that looks like more work for them. And so we wanted, like, how do we have everybody celebrate in bringing more work into the business? We bonus it. We share in what makes us excited about having a new client come into the business.
Yeah, so we can, we started the journey from, essentially switching from 80% tax revenue to 80% CAS revenue about 7 years ago. Within 1 year, we knew that we need to change how this looks. And as you mentioned, like, this means more work as we're going through this transition if you're serving both annual and monthly clients. So initially, 6 years back, we put aside 3 months of that the first 3 months of that engagement in a boss bonus pool or a CAS bonus pool, and then that was paid out 3 times a year to the team. And their percentage in that bonus pool was either structured based on their role, how much involvement they had in the CAS business and that transformation. What it ultimately did, and why it was successful for a season, is it got people excited about the transition, about the transformation, and it tied bonus dollars to that. And so we continued that for 6 years. It served us really well. Over the last probably year or 2 years, that no longer became an effective, I guess, incentive is the word for people, because what we saw is there was lack of control on their compensation. And we always paired that with a merit bonus. And so there's two parts of the bonus calculation for us. Merit is discretionary, it's based on different metrics, whether it's effectiveness, kind of willingness to jump in, all that good stuff. I would say it's off the hip a little bit, if you know what I mean, but it still can be backed up with effort. So the boss bonus pool lasted for a bit, but we knew like there was some disconnect. People could not calculate what their bonus was going to be at any one point, and they didn't have control over the sales process, who we accepted as a client, how that was structured as far as the price, because the price also impacted the bonus pool because 3 months of that went into the bonus pool. So we scratched our head for about a year, thought about different things, different ways to incentivize people. And at the same time, we went back to what are we holding ourselves out? Like, what do we tell clients is our main objective in serving them? And so we started asking really good questions. And you want to share a little bit about what we rolled out in Florida as far as the new bonus pool, the new bonus plan?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you said that we thought about this and took a while to develop what would be the best next structure for bonus, because it impacts people individually and it's messing with their money, I like to say. And anytime you do that, there really needs to be a good reason. There needs to be a clearly defined plan in place. And we need to be able to communicate that effectively with the team so that they understand that we're not doing anything that's going to be worse for them we're doing things that ultimately will be better for them. So being able to communicate that, making sure that that is actually true when you're devising these plans is also very important. And so we like to communicate what's staying the same, what's changing, and how does that impact them uh, individually or personally. And so what stayed the same for them from the old bonus structure to the new is merit bonus is still a component. So that doesn't change. How we determine merit bonus also stays the same. We're looking at effectiveness and client satisfaction. We're looking at innovation and new ideas that they have brought, new value that they've brought to processes and other team members. And so that stays the same. The part that changes, instead of incentivizing a new client being brought into the team, we're actually incentivizing each team member for serving the client well and getting their financial statements out to them by the 15th of the following month. So, for every single client that they are able to deliver completed quality work by the 15th of the following month, they receive an amount. So we serve our clients in teams of three. That means that the whole team needs to work together. That means that the whole team receives that amount for serving the client well. And what this really does is it gives a lot of control to each individual person and then the individual teams.
Yeah. So we, as accountants, I'm sure a lot of listeners, we want to get timely, relevant financial data in our clients' hands as quick as possible, right? We've held out for most that 15th. After the 15th, it becomes kind of stale. You're already halfway through the next month. A lot has happened. So the 15th is our benchmark. Some financials go out way sooner than that. But if they go out past the 15th, you really have to like what's broken as far as process. And so we rolled that out, the whole team of three working together in case somebody's out or in case there is process improvement. We just wanted everybody to kind of be bought into that. We we believe in team effort over individual effort, and so we just felt like that was the way to do it. We'd look at every client, and so just throwing dollars out, it's not large dollars, but $25 per person on that team of three per client. So each client financial that goes out by the 15th, it gets paid $75, $25 to CSM, $25 controller, $25 CFO. And while that may not seem like a lot, it may be that's equal to like almost 1 hour, like 1 hour of pay for somebody. So it does impact. And whenever you have 25 clients, it accumulates pretty quick. And we pay that out 3 times a year. So 4 months of that, you've earned potentially $100 per client if that client, is met by the 15th, is sending it out. So that's what we've rolled out. We'll probably have a whole other conversation to let people know how that's going. We can even share data on that as we track it, but we know we can calculate it from an owner perspective, what potential bonus budget needs to be now. And then the team member can also calculate and push for, hey, I want this whole bonus. Maybe they shoot for 85% or 90% is the goal, because there's always going to be like one or two clients that it just something is broken in the process and we're okay with it. But when you can push out, great. And even on the other side, like, so that was, we rolled that out Saturday. Today is actually Thursday. I was in a team meeting with a client, and Melissa, who's a CSM on my team, mentioned to the client, hey, like, we're going to change up what we issue to you because we've got this new incentive plan at DBA. And I get a little bonus if we issue the financials by the 15th. So we're going to do your core financials by the 15th. Those are going to go out to you. But some of the budget reports, those are probably going to happen after the 15th, as close to the 15th as possible. But and I'm okay with that. But those are the conversations, like the innovation that's now happening to get timely, relevant financial data out to the clients. Because if that client calls me and says, hey, I want to go over the financials, I'm like, oh crap, where are they? Like, have they been issued? I'm going to go grab that most recent set of financials that have been issued. And if they're more than 15 days old, like, how helpful is that? If they're 45 days old or 30 days old, it's not helpful at all. because he wants to talk to something that's going on right now or an opportunity in the future. So that's one like goal that we've had, and I think team members are already adopting, it and how they can earn that bonus and calculate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we didn't leave anything up to the imagination or have team members trying to crunch numbers in their head during this conversation. We actually put an example. So, an example for a client service manager, let's say, who has 20 clients every single month, we actually put the calculation of what it would look like if maybe she finished 18 financials by the 15th one month and then had two perfect months and then maybe only got 15 out the next month. Things will happen. Every once in a while, clients will delay something being done, but wanted to show that even with as few as 20 clients per month, you could still have, like an $1,800 bonus by the time we do bonuses 3 times a year. So within a 4 month period, it will be significant. The other thing that we did during this conversation, really to make it relevant and to get feedback, like transparent, open feedback, was we did an activity that we just called optimist pessimist. And so we assigned pairs within the team either to be an optimist and think of two positive things about the new bonus structure, or to be a pessimist and think of two negative things. And then they had to share them. What this did was it forced people to say out loud any negative thoughts that they potentially had. And then it gave us the opportunity to talk through it. So, one that I think is really funny, and it was actually after the fact, after the activity was done, was one of our team members, Mallory, threw out, "Really convenient that you changed the bonus structure after signing on 13 new clients in one day," which I'm thankful that she said it out loud, because whether people were thinking about it at that moment or maybe like had the light bulb moment somewhere later on, it was perfect timing, and also just goes to show like how relaxed and how open people were to feel like they could say that out loud. Because what that let us remember, we already said we were coming up with this, creating this structure for a year. So the fact that 13 new clients signed, a week before we rolled it out, or a couple days actually before we rolled it out, we had no way of knowing that that was going to happen. Also, if we looked at the alternative and had the four only clients that had signed before that, again, that is why we're trying to make the incentives match the behaviors we want to see. So we want to match up what we're compensating and rewarding to align with what we're promising clients and what we want to see more of out of our team members.
Yeah. And so for about 6 months, we've really seen like we really pushed on efficiency and effectiveness within the teams, and even monitored how many financials went out before the 15th, before we rolled this out, because if nobody was hitting those metrics, we didn't want it to be, unsuccessful. So we've been pushing on efficiency and getting out financials by the 15th for the last few months, is really like, okay, now is the time. We can finally roll it out because majority of those are going out. So that was part of it as well. We built this bonus for the majority of our team. So I think this is the other thing to kind of talk through. And that's why the exercise of optimist pessimist was helpful, because we designed this bonus for a CSM or a controller or CFO that dedicates, a majority of their time to client service, because like that's the majority of our team. We do have a few team members that only have a handful of clients, like 5 clients. So we did not design a bonus structure for like a few team members. We designed it for the majority of the team. And the way that we can compensate those team members that do a great job with fewer clients is through the merit bonus. So I would say like that was also some of the ways that we thought through this, because we knew there would be questions about, well, I only have 5 clients. Is that fair? We also have another client controller who does an amazing job serving some of our large family groups. And she doesn't have, I think she has 2 CAS clients. So that's not fair. and that's why we have merit bonus to kind of true up everything. So I think the bonus conversation went really well. Part of that is, being able to shut up and listen and requiring them to actually speak by the optimist pessimist game.
Yeah. So, really focus of that team meeting, the whole trip focus was unity because we don't get to spend a lot of time in person together. But the focus of the meeting also was opportunities. So, this is an opportunity to earn more compensation or to be rewarded for the effort that you're giving. The other part of that, and an objective for this year as well, is providing or making a path for leadership opportunities and career advancement within DBA. So we want to make sure that within our firm, we have an amazing team. I always say we have the best team. And if you have met our team members, I think you probably agree with me. And so making sure that our team does not have to look outside of DBA for additional leadership opportunities, additional compensation opportunities, or just career advancement from opportunity of what they're working on. And so that is definitely something that we spent quite a bit of time talking about at the team meeting as well.
Yeah, and so there was really two things that we rolled out. So we talked about bonus structure first, and then we rolled out these leadership opportunities. And then within leadership, that we did two. So the first one was subject matter experts, and so we identified that we had a gap in having a point person on certain things. We started real basic, and we want subject matter expert on accounting, tax, and payroll. And so with that, that's going to be the person. If you've got a tax question or accounting question or tax or a payroll question, that's who you go to. Not saying they know all the answers, but they're going to help find it. And then they're also going to be educating the team throughout the process of the year. And with that comes an additional stipend of, I believe it's about $900 a year. Not big dollars, but if you're a part-time person, like that could be equal to one paycheck or, 1 week, I guess, in most scenarios. So, but yeah, so we rolled that out. The second opportunity was around onboarding. So we are still growth minded as a firm. Part of that is just offsetting transitions, whether it be churn from clients that just no longer the skill of our team doesn't match the budget that they have, or clients that sell their businesses. So onboarding goes hand in hand with growth. And we took what used to be the boss bonus pool and kind of incentivizing growth across the whole team to matching that now with the people that are onboarding those new clients. So with that, we rolled out an additional compensation plan. So this is the third, if you're tracking along, right? We changed the bonus structure. We did the subject matter expert stipend. And then the third is this onboarding piece. So what we did there is we take 50% of the onboarding fee that we charge. And sometimes that's negotiated. The team knows whenever they are going into that onboarding what that is now. And 50% of that onboarding could be paid out to that team that is onboarding that new client based on how quickly and how effective they are in onboarding that client. And it goes from 50% if it's done within 2 weeks to 40% in 3, 30% in 4, and then it goes all the way to where at the end of 6 weeks, if that client's not onboarded fully, then there's no bonus to pay out because it's been paid out through payroll. So it's just an incentive to give back to the team of three and Deidre, who helps onboard those new clients as well. So with that leadership, we needed to know, hey, are you willing to accept new clients? Are you willing to do onboardings? And if so, like, here's an opportunity to lead a part of the onboarding journey for that new client because we want them to start that relationship really well.
Yeah, I feel like this is the start of a few later episodes once we see this was the rollout of all of these new opportunities for our team, and then to see kind of the challenges and the successes of each one of these as we go. I think we could, have future opportunities on future episodes to just kind of go through what it looked like, how it impacted each team member, and then kind of the success and challenges that we faced. Because going into all of these, we know that there's challenges and we know that there are things that we have to actually experience before we can kind of solve whatever those challenges that come up. We've got lists, long lists, but you kind of have to take a step in the right direction and see in order to know what adjustments need to be made. We know that there will be need adjustments, but we don't know what those are until we actually try it and do it. So instead of, talking about it and, kind of stressing over it and just thinking about it in all different ways, actually going ahead and just taking that next step and taking action towards what you want to see. The biggest thing with the implementation, what we call it, or onboarding, what it's typically known as, is in an accounting firm, we're not just onboarding a tax return. For our services, we're onboarding at minimum accounting file. So whatever they used previously to QuickBooks Online, definitely tax returns, maybe sales tax, and also payroll. And so those are all things that are really important. And what we've seen is that can drag out for a really long time when you're trying to get that kind of specific, sensitive information from clients, but also if it requires their team to do things and they're waiting on other people. So there's just a lot of people in the mix during that process. And so what we want to incentivize and reward is streamlining that, kind of innovating in those processes to see what can we do ahead of time, what can we do for the client maybe to make it move faster to get that client into full service. Our teams of three, our each team member, they serve the clients very well. So the sooner we can get them into their normal monthly service and out of onboarding, the better. So again, kind of just putting that, why would we not incentivize doing exactly what we want to see? And then even kind of having like a sliding scale for that, until we get all the way to, expectation is 6 weeks. If it's longer than that, we haven't even, delivered on the expectations or the promise we made to the client. So has to at least be within that window, and the sooner the better. And we are willing to reward each team member for that.
Yeah. And so we've broken up that onboarding bonus. 10% goes to our tax administrator, 40% goes to the CSM, 40% goes to the client controller, and then 10% goes to the CFO. So we know that the CSM and the controller are leading a lot of those efforts. I will say, I'll kind of close this part of the conversation with, we've already seen benefits since we've rolled this out. We actually rolled it out to a team prior to the retreat and said, "Hey, we're going to talk about this at the retreat, but because you just got a new client, we want to test it on you first and kind of talk through it with them." We start that clock at the client kickoff call with the team. So after sales, we introduce the onboarding or service team in a joint call with the client, and that's when the clock starts. Now, during the sales conversation, we may have gotten access to their QBO file. We may have gotten copies of their tax returns. So part of this is what can happen leading up to the kickoff call. And then once the clock starts, that's when the clock starts for the onboarding bonus. So what came out of the conversation was, well, I'm going to go ahead and go into their QB file and like really look at it, really analyze it first. And then I'm also going to pro forma their tax returns, look at those ahead of the client kickoff call. And then if there are any changes to whether the tax situation or the chart of accounts, we're going to recommend it at the kickoff call versus at the kickoff call, you say, "Hey, I'm going to look at this over the next few days." So it's already moved onboardings a little bit, from all starting at kickoff call to now, what can you do prior to that? And I think it'll get better. We'll share our experiences on this. I hope, like, it's our goal to pay our team as much as we can, right? And the way that they do that is through earning it and matching that with what we want to happen. And so we always want the best client service. We want the most effective and fast onboardings that we possibly can, because that leads to better service. So if you're kind of scratching your head on how to make your employees do what you want them to do, throw some dollars where it matters most.
That's right. If you want to see change, get feedback, really get different results than what you've been getting previously. Throw some money conversations in there, and things change real fast. We said that from clients when we increase prices. They might not ever fill out a feedback survey or an NPS score, but you change the price, they'll definitely give you some feedback right away related to that price increase. Same with the team members. So it's not that we hadn't said financials are due by the 15th, and whatever you need to do to make that happen, you should do. Those were things that were said. For implementation, it's not that we didn't say we need to get these guys out as quick as possible from implementation to service. However, when we put money behind it, the ideas just came rushing out a lot quicker than when we just said, this is something we'd like to see. It just makes that more of a priority. It just helps connect the dots from, what the owner is thinking to what the team member understands. They understand if dollars are involved, then that means that you really do place importance or priority on that thing.
And if the client or the new client knows that there's an incentive tied to it for that team member, our client, like they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to make Marcus and Rachel pay out that bonus every single time. So let's do whatever we need to do because they value, the team members and they're trying to make their life easy too. So that's awesome to see. So that's pretty much everything we covered. Obviously, we gave a little bit of update on DBA Firm and what's rolling out later this year. But that was pretty much the morning. That was covered in 4 hours. We like that we did that day one, the morning of, because any additional conversations, questions, or anything could be, discussed over the next 2 days when we were still together. And then they could talk to their spouses, explain what was rolled out. The spouse could ask questions. They're still talking about it, in the in between. And so that was what we had hoped for. So that was the day one. The day two was really much breakfast, and then we treated everybody to a boat trip out to Crab Island. If you're familiar with Destin, it's just a place where you can be on a sandbar in the water, kind of enjoying others' company. It's a setting that they probably have more in the Caribbean too, but it's in Florida. So that was a lot of fun.
They now have
Sometimes,
Chick-fil-A delivery
yeah,
in the water, so that's something that's really unique or fun about Crab Island. Crab Island being a sandbar is that mini boats do congregate with a lot of people. And so the entrepreneurs out there brought the stuff to the people. So food, drinks, t-shirts and souvenirs, as well as like some fresh fruit and ice cream, but also Chick-fil-A. We went on a Sunday, so Chick-fil-A wasn't an option for us, but guaranteed multiple of us would have bought Chick-fil-A just because of the novelty of being able to get Chick-fil-A out in the middle. Is it considered the Gulf right there? It's too pretty. It feels too pretty to be considered the
it
Gulf,
is.
but
Yeah.
um, yeah, so that was also kind of fun for that day. Again, it was just a chance for us to all be together. We actually were all on the same boat and then kind of hung out near the boat all together, and then we're able to have just that shared experience. I think that's, what brings a lot of bonding and unity is just having shared experiences. Really good, really bad, doesn't matter. Just having that shared to be able to talk about it in the future.
Yeah. Probably word of caution if you're going to eat like chicken in shark infested waters. I don't know that that's always the best idea, but it was a really good time. And so after the boat, then we all go back to the hotel. We provided transportation to and from the boat, obviously, just to make sure everybody got there, everybody got back. So plan for that cost. And then obviously the excursion if you're going to do something like that. And then we wrapped up the day. A lot of us spent time in pools after that or at the beach. But, we wrapped up the day with a nice dinner to kind of send people off because some people started leaving as early as 4 a.m. That Monday after. So it's the last chance to kind of spend time with one another as a whole group in the table, in each other's tables. There was like 3 or 4 tables that we had there as well, but it was just a really nice wrap up dinner on the lawn there. And just gives you a chance to tell people how much they mean to you, how much, everything like that. And it's always great to do that in front of spouses if you can.
Yeah, and you really had a great idea. Kind of it was kind of a last minute idea. It wasn't something that we actually planned out, in the months of planning and preparation that went into this. This was kind of a once we got there, really wanted to highlight and celebrate each team member individually in front of the whole team and their spouse. You did this. And so I thought it was really good. But you shared kind of when they started and what they mean to you and the team and the clients for each person. And so just hearing that from you, I know depending on team sizes and different things, personality of the owner, maybe, that may or may not be something that's really common. I check in with the team or the team checks in with me just about every single week. And so they hear from me, they get affirmations and feedback from me all the time. We have one on ones with different team members and leaders within the organization. And so they get that feedback at least every other week. And so to hear from you directly and for their spouses to hear from you directly, I think was just really impactful for the whole team. You also wrote a handwritten card out to each one of those team members as well for them to kind of take with them. And so, other than not clarifying ahead of time that there was no money or gift cards in that card, that it was just a gift of words, I think that that was a huge success. And I would say probably one of the things that the team counts as the best part of the trip.
Yeah, I think so too. And, obviously spouses question like, why do y'all do what you do? I think that's part of, over our career, over our, span of business ownership, anytime people just kind of question, is this for real? Like, what's really going on? Like, that means we're doing something right. I think that's just us coming out, living out our faith, or the reason why we do this on a day in, day out basis, not necessarily the dollars or lack of dollars in case of those envelopes. That is a part of it all. So yeah, that dinner will be a highlight, thinking back on this for a long time. And just, you've got everybody there, you've got a captive audience, so you might as well use it to the best of your ability. So
Yeah. Well, it was an excellent time.
yeah.
Any other thoughts around retreat or treating the team? Any
Yeah.
opportunities or any other thoughts to share?
So two things, like, what we're going to do is we're going to, going forward, mid-year retreat could potentially be a travel retreat if we meet goals from the year before. So if we meet all of our goals and kind of decide as a team, like, we did a great job. So 2023, we did a great job. So 2024, we had a travel retreat. Same thing. If we meet all of our goals, 2024, summer of 2025, which we've already started looking at destinations, there will be a travel retreat, and spouses are included in that. So if that's something you want to roll out, like, just budget for it. The budget on this domestic trip, non all inclusive, came out about double what it would have been if it had been in Mexico, and in an easy destination in Mexico, just one flight for most people. So I would say it was about $6,000 per couple was the cost of this trip. And so, not small by any means, especially when you have, 14, 15 team members, you double that, and that's how many people are in your care. So about $3,000 per person, $6,000 per couple. And the way you're able to do this is just budget for it and put a little bit aside every month to do something special. And for us, we could pay that amount in rent to an office building, or you could do something that your team truly enjoys, like going on a trip once a year and keeping your best people happy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking me along on the trip. I had a great time and looking forward to doing that again, as well as looking forward to our next episode.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks for hanging with us to the end of another episode. Leave us a review with your thoughts, comments, and feedback on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Join us again next week for another great conversation.